Understanding whitetail deer behavior. If knowledge is power, then understanding a whitetail's mind is the ultimate hunting superpower. Let me split the tea for you. Hunting whitetail isn't about having the fanciest gear, nor is it about luck. You don't believe me? Well, fair enough, because if I were at your place, I wouldn't believe it either. But I promise you will eventually. Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever felt like whitetails can read your mind? Like they just know you're out there somewhere, even if you're hiding like a pro? You did feel it, didn't you? That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. It's neither luck nor the gear. It's about getting into the heads of whitetail. But how do you do that? Well, here's the deal. Whitetails aren't walking out there to be hunted. God has gifted them with the instincts sharper than your best hunting knife. Every rustle, every shift in the wind, and even the scent that doesn't belong to them alert them. So if you want to outsmart a whitetail, you've got to think like one. That means you must learn how they eat, sleep, and even dodge predators. Let's crack the code and find out how these charismatic creatures think. Here we'll discuss the nitty-gritty of how whitetails behave. We'll talk about why bucks act like lone wolves one minute and start chasing does the other like it's prom season. Moreover, we'll also discuss what keeps them still, what makes them move, and how to read the signs they leave behind. Trust me, man, once you start seeing the world through their eyes, everything you know about hunting will change. So, go get your coffee, a snack, or whatever keeps you sharp, because we're about to crack the code on whitetails' behavior. Section 1. Core behavioral patterns. Here's everything you need to know about a whitetail's behavioral patterns. Seasonal instincts. Whitetails don't have a calendar, but they act like they have one. Their mating, bedding patterns, and feeding routines are influenced by the season they're in. Let's have a deeper look at it. Mating-driven activity shifts. Whitetails have a fascinating breeding cycle that you need to understand if you truly want to stay ahead of the game. Whitetails are often known as palestrious and short-day breeders. May seem a bit complicated. Okay, let me tell you in a simpler way. The mating season of whitetails starts during the shorter daylight hours of fall. For most whitetails up north, this mostly happens in November, with the whole rut season ranging from October to December. Down south, whitetails take their time, and mating happens around January or February. During the rut season, they use some cues to communicate with each other. Does and bucks use special secretions from sweat glands on their legs to send a signal, some kind of scent-based message to their potential partners. So the next time you see them fighting during the fall, just know what's happening there. Feeding routines influenced by climate. Whitetail's feeding behavior is largely influenced by changing seasons and environmental conditions. Let's find out when and where whitetails eat throughout the year. Spring is the season of recovery for whitetails after the harsh winter. Their metabolism reaches its peak, and they are all about regaining their lost energy. Pregnant does eat for 2 and sometimes even for 3 as they prepare their bodies to give birth in late spring or early summer. And when the summer comes in, their primary focus is to find cooler spots. So they mostly eat in the early morning or late in the evening when the temperature becomes bearable. When the fall comes around and the temperature starts to drop, they increase their fat storage and start to bulk up. Bucks increase their travel range to find their receptive doe for mating. During winter, their metabolism slows down, and that is when the survival game starts. Winter is often known as a season of hardship of whitetails. Bucks, especially, lose 25% of their body weight during that time of the year. They are forced to survive on plants that often don't have any nutritional benefits because in snow, it's hard to travel and find food. Bedding patterns aligned with predator avoidance. Whitetails use their bedding habit as a survival strategy against their predators like coyotes. Unlike other types of deer like mules, which group together to reduce the risk of predation, whitetails rely on flight to escape their predator. This predator avoidance behavior directly influences their selection of bedding. They prefer selecting bedding spots that are hard for predators to access, and where they can escape easily whenever they sense danger. This ready-to-run strategy of whitetails helps them to stay one step ahead of their predators. Social dynamics. Now let's talk about the social dynamics of whitetails. Yes, they do have their own version of social groups, and understanding their dynamics can give you a huge edge when it comes to hunting this species. Hierarchy within deer populations. The hierarchy of white-tailed deer plays a significant role in their survival and reproduction. Following the rut season, bucks begin to shed their antlers, a process called casting, influenced by various factors like testosterone level, nutrition, and weather conditions. Mature bucks shed earlier than young ones. Harsh environmental conditions can accelerate the process of casting. After the rut season, bucks start to regroup and form bachelor herds of 3 to 6 deer, which often include 1 or 2 mature bucks and a young male. That's the time of year when they reestablish their social bonds and dominance hierarchy. When it comes to does, the hierarchy is even stricter. Their group is led by an alpha doe. This matriarch helps in the survival of the herd by teaching younger does survival skills. Alpha also plays an important role in driving young bucks out of the herd to prevent inbreeding and promote genetic diversity. Communication through subtle body language. Just like other animals, whitetails communicate through nonverbal cues, body language, and scent. Think of it as your mom giving you that lowered eyebrow look in front of guests when you were a kid, and you instantly get yourself up. Whitetails use their ears, nose, eyes, hair, and tail to communicate with each other, such as warning other deer of potential danger, expressing mood, and more. We, as hunters, must be familiar with the foot stomp and snorts when busted by a deer and bleats and grunts during the rut. However, there are other signs as well that you might be unfamiliar with, such as if you see a whitetail raise its front foot and attempt to put it down on the other deer's back or neck. Know that it's trying to teach herd hierarchy lessons to the other. And during rut season, if you spot a buck lowering its head, raising its hair, laying back its ear, and staring directly at the offending deer for a few seconds, know that another buck is nearby. There are some other fun and fascinating signs as well that we'll be discussing in detail later in this chapter. Responses to territorial challenges. Whitetails sometimes respond to territorial challenges with a display of dominance and aggression sometimes. Bucks, often mature ones, show dominance using several body cues, such as raising their hackles, tilting their bodies, and widening their stance. They signal the warning and readiness to flee to other members of the herd. Sometimes, if a more challenging situation comes up, they may also engage in physical confrontation, using their antlers to push others to run and escape. This behavior of bucks shows their dominance, which helps them maintain order during the rut. Sensory worlds. It would be crazy to say whitetail system works like sensory machines. After all, their survival depends on it. They are much more aware of their surroundings than anyone could ever be. Exceptional hearing and scent detection. Whitetails are so good at scent detection that they can smell dangerous even from hundreds of yards away. And trust me, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm telling you with my experience. It was a chilly morning in November 2010. I was hunting with my friend. We spotted a thick-bodied buck about 100 yards away from us. The buck was looking for a doe, its nose stuck to the ground and its mouth was open. It wasn't paying much attention to its surroundings. Well, that's what we thought. And just in a matter of seconds, the wind, which wasn't in our favor that day, dragged our scent right across its path. As soon as he smelled the scent, his head turned around so fast and his eyes looked straight in our direction. In seconds, it disappeared into the ravine. That's why scent control and wind direction are as crucial as your gear. Their hearing is just as sharp as their scent detection. As I mentioned earlier, their ears work like radar, even when they are bedding. They can pick up even a rustle of your jacket. Visual acuity adapted to woodland environments. The vision of whitetails is better than ours, at least in some way. The research found a few interesting facts about the whitetail's vision. They can see 5 times better than us humans. They're good at seeing the shades of yellows and blues, but have trouble seeing reds and greens. Their eyes can detect even the slightest movement. They see the potential danger from several angles to have a 3D look. That's why they often shift their head from one side to another and bob them up and down. The pro tip here is to minimize your movement. It doesn't matter if you're sitting out openly, as long as you're moving. Sensory triggers leading to flight or freeze. Whitetail's instincts to flee or freeze kick in instantly at the slightest of sensory triggers. The slightest sound might make a whitetail freeze for a second to detect the source of danger. And the second that sound pairs with a scent, that immediately runs away. Let's say you're hunting and spot an alpha doe, and it sees you coming. Instead of bolting right away, she will stare right in your direction and start head bobbing and ducking. You and I know what will happen. You'll freeze. She will stop and will seem to have calmed down. That's where you're supposed to stay still, because she will fake you a few times by head bobbing and stopping. She might as well look in the other direction away from you just to snap back and catch you moving. So just keep still, and you're good to go. Section 2. Environmental Influences. Now let's talk about how the environment shapes the behavior of whitetails. Habitat variation. Whitetails are highly adaptable mammals. They can easily thrive in a variety of habitats, most commonly found in farmlands, mixed forest, swamp, or brushlands. One of the major reasons for their widespread distribution is their ability to adapt to different environments. Forest edges versus crop fields. Whitetails prefer edge habitats, traditional zones between two types of ecosystems, such as somewhere between forest and fields. These zones provide a variety of vegetation for feeding and cover for hiding from predators whenever needed. They hide in the forest for safety, specifically during the daytime, and venture into the crop fields at dawn and dusk for feeding. Preferred vegetation for cover and sustenance. Feeding habits of whitetails are influenced by the availability of food and predation risk. They prefer areas with thick vegetation for their cover and safety. Shrubs, tall grasses, and young saplings help them by providing cover from their predators. For sustenance, their vegetation depends on the season. For example, during spring and summer, they eat green plants, including leaves, stems, and flowers. When the fall approaches, their diet transitions to nuts, fruits, and acorns. This rich carbohydrate diet helps them to store fat in their bodies for the winter. In the winter, they rely on woodsy browse such as buds, twigs, and barks of shrubs and trees. This less nutritional diet can lead to weight loss during the hard winter season. Impact of fragmented landscapes on movement. The world we live in is a world of sprawling developments and farmland that has led to fragmented landscapes. These fragmented landscapes serve as double-edged swords for whitetails. On the one hand, these fragments of fields and forest provide edge habitats for whitetails, which they love the most. On the other hand, this also forces them to move and travel more, which increases their risk of exposing themselves to their predators or hunters. Moreover, these fragmented landscapes can also make it a bit harder for whitetails to maintain their regular movement patterns, and as a result, hunting them becomes even more unpredictable. Weather factors. Weather conditions largely impact the behavior of whitetails. Let's explore it in detail. Increased activity during pressure changes. Hunters often believe that whitetails move more when the pressure increases. Let's first understand what high and low pressure means. High pressure means low humidity and few clouds, while low pressure means more clouds, which can be followed by rain and snow. Whitetail moves as the temperature increases. There isn't any doubt about it. And you know it's a great time to hunt. But let me tell you this. Low pressure can also be an excellent time as well. Ask how? Well, just before a storm or a cold front, whitetails sense the pressure that moves around to load up their stomach and survive the pressure and find a good spot to ride out the storm. You can catch them in between. Altered feeding in extreme cold or heat.